Users know best, so test. My name is Nancie McCraw. I work for Earth Resources Technology. We are a science and technology company that provides solutions for mainly NOAA and NASA. I work in the National Centers for Environmental Information, specifically with the National Integrated Drought Information System. Basically, I'm a web developer for Drought.gov. That's a long introduction. I know I get confused about who I work for too. So if you don't remember any of this, just think Drought.gov. And that's mainly what I'm going to be talking about today. Some solutions that we have integrated on how to make user testing work within our development cycle. And I'm extremely nervous. Public speaking is not my thing. So if I pass out, please, somebody throw water on me. How we got here. We have a great team. We have a lot of strong personalities on our great team. We are all right. Or I should say, none of us are wrong. We are not all right. We all have different perspectives on what our audience values. We're probably all talking about different audiences. And we want to exceed our regulatory requirements for accessibility and usability. And if anybody's working on a .gov website, we have a lot of regulatory requirements. So that's kind of where we got here. The other thing that we have is we found that we were spending 90% of our time on sections of our website that only about 0.5% of our users were visiting. So our program office really values a program, and this is really, really high value for our political stakeholders as well, called the Drought Early Warning Systems. And that's where they wanted us to concentrate all of our attention, and we did for about 1.5 years. Well, we were getting 15 users per month to the entirety of all our Drought Early Warning System pages. Of that 15 users per month, all but 3 of them were in our program office. So it was really a mismatch of where we were spending our resources and where the high value was, where we were getting our high value. So this is kind of how we got to where we started looking at how we were going to do this. So we came upon these mini usability tests. The tests themselves are based on research by the Nielsen-Norman Group. So this isn't just something that is a fly-by-night system. They came up with, in their research, they say with just 3 to 5 users, you're going to get 65 to 85% of the information you need to answer a yes or no question. Like, does this work or does this not work? Do you like this or do you not? Is this good or is this bad? Should this be here or should this be there? You're going to get 65 to 85% with just 3 to 5 users. We conduct these tests with our dev team. It only takes 10 to 15 minutes. We don't have to go to an outside group. We don't have to put out an RFP. And we do this within our 2 to 4 week sprints. So we build a thing, we do a section of the page, we change something, we run a small scale usability test on it. We get the immediate feedback. Did it work? Did it not? Did it do what we expected it to do? Does it not do it? We take that yes or no feedback, we improve it. We say, okay, that worked, that didn't work. Let's fix it now. Fix it while it's cheap. Any questions so far? I know that kind of run through that. That's just kind of the high level.
Do you use a different 3 to 5 people each time?
Yes, for the same test. So if we build a form, we're going to test 3 to 5 people. We make changes to the form, we're going to use a different 3 to 5 people. However, if we build a different widget, we can go back to the same 3 to 5 people. That's key because we want to target the users that are targeted for our site. So we have two different user groups that we target for our site. We want those users that we're looking for to be, if at all possible, to be the users we test. We don't want to test college students if we're developing an app for scientists. So our testing process, what we do in a test, the specific, what the tests look like, it includes the title page for the feature we're testing. We have an introduction script. Basically, we're asking the users as we're going through the test to think aloud. Tell us what you like, anything that comes to your head. You have to remind people to think aloud because they'll just be looking at it, and we want them to tell us what they're thinking as they go through it. Each task should have the wording or script you give them to perform, because as you are conducting these tests, you're going to be as nervous as I'm standing up here. You want a goal, what you want the user to do. You're not going to say this to the user. Everything you say to the user is going to be part of the script. You want the known problem, something that you think of that's not happening in the test with the site, what your analytics is saying that there is a problem. A burning question. So you may have a known problem or you may have a burning question. Hey, does the user like this button? Will the user find the button? Or the known problem is our users don't seem to be finding our button. The success criteria. This is one that was really difficult for us, a concept for our team to grasp at first. The success criteria isn't user found the button. The success criteria was user found the button within 30 seconds of loading the page. We don't want our users to flounder on a page and have to struggle with it. We want to say, we think our average user should be able to find this feature and use it within X amount of time. If it takes them a minute and a half, we've failed our job. One thing that we do going into this is we've had to learn to let go of our code. We've had to learn to let go of our processes, and we go into all of these tests figuring that what we do is wrong. Our users are right, what we've done is wrong. We want them to find flaws. We want our users to fail in these tests. Our users succeed, we want to fail. We want to find any problem that could possibly happen in these tests so that we can fix it now. And that's really hard. When you're going through these tests and we want them to go here and they're going here, it's really, really tough. So this is an example of a test that we created. Our introduction, take a look at the page. Tell me what you think about it. What you like, what you don't like. Just look around and do a little narrative. Our task. You notice your garbage seems to be stressed because of rain. Several of your neighbors are complaining. You're wondering if the drought's happening in your area. Use the site to find out more about drought conditions. So we found it's really great if you can give them a scenario and relate it back to what's something that they would actually want to do. Our goal for this test was to have them use the Drought in Your Neighborhood tool. No problem. We feel that it's too far down on the page. People are getting distracted by other things, and they may be not getting to it. Burning questions was, can they actually find it? The success criteria was, they found it and started interacting with it in under a minute. The second task was, can they actually understand the information it's providing them? So our task was, hey, tell me about the drought in your neighborhood. Can the users accurately explain the results? The known problem was the users were confused by the results. The burning questions, can they explain the results? The success criteria, we did not put a timeline on that. And then we asked an open-ended questions. Can you tell me about a time that this would have helped you? And let a more free-flowing thought. So this is an example. This just takes 10, 15 minutes. We conduct these in the break room. So what do you need? You need a user. They should be part of your target audience. We use value proposition canvassing to identify our users and their needs. That's another session. I don't believe that session wasn't chosen for this conference. You want not only the person conducting the test, but an observer taking notes, in person if possible. The test should be recorded. We don't have Macs. Macs have a really easy way to record, but you want to record voice, and you want to record what they're doing on the screen so you can see their mouse movements. Macs have a really great way to do that. We use Zoom. You do not want to record the actual person and let them know. We have a release that we use that they sign off that they are being recorded, their voice and their screen capture are being recorded, but they themselves are not being recorded. You want to release. It's recommended, even if they are a coworker. I put we have our coworkers sign the release as well. If they're not a coworker specifically, you want to release. We share these within our development team, so even afterwards, specifically our observers and our test takers will go back through and we take notes, and I'll show you how we evaluate these tests in a little bit. You want a mock-up of the thing that is to be tested or the thing itself. We've done these on paper sketches. I know the NEMAC, who we've got this process from, has done it on napkin sketches before. Just, hey, do you think this will work? And a thank you for your users, something of value. A cup of coffee. We've done this at the coffee shop down the street from our building. Just something of value. It doesn't have to be expensive. Just something for the user because they are taking time out of the day to provide you something very valuable. So the big thing, and the thing that'll get you, that will bite you the hardest, is bias. Your users that are taking your test are going to have bias. You're going to have bias. I mentioned a little bit earlier that you're going to have ownership bias of the thing you're testing. You know how it should work. So you're going to have a tendency to lead the user. One thing that I've had, every test that I've experienced, the user will say, what does this thing do? And the answer should be, what do you think it should do? Users are going to come through in one of two groups. Either they're going to be overly pleasing and they're going to want to say nice things about what you're testing to be nice to you, or they're going to be overly critical, and you need to understand that they're going to have those biases. There's no way you can take the bias out of this process. There is a way that you can strive every time to try to eliminate as much bias as possible of your own and of your users. And you just need to understand that it's there and try to mitigate as much as possible. So conducting a test, you start the sound and screen recording. You read the consent to record and get the confirmation that they consent on the recording. Read the intro script, conduct the test, stop the recording, thank the user, and then you review the recording and analyze the results. This is the biggest part, and that's the most time consuming, is to figure out what this means. It's really easy to do the test. It only takes a few minutes. It takes a long time to figure out what this means and what we should do with this information. In the analysis, of course, there's a spreadsheet, because the world runs on spreadsheets. Even though we have much better ways to do things and handle things, the world still runs on spreadsheets. Everyone on our team analyzes the recording, because everybody on our team has a different perspective, and they're going to pick up on different things that the user said and did during the test. Our analysis includes statistics on the success rate. How long did it actually take them to do? If they failed, how long did these users actually do it in? Was our estimation off, Or is there something we need to do to make sure that they can do it faster? There's a tab for issues, things that we noticed that were problems, things that we noticed that weren't part of the test that were problems, surprises, good or bad, things that the users did that were just completely off our radar. And all of this leads to tabs that we develop user stories, affinity maps, and potential fixes. So this is an example of one of the spreadsheets that's analysis of a user test. So there were 5 different tasks and 4 different users took the test. And more about bias. I expected this to take this a lot longer. We need to let go of our emotional ties to our things. I have a team member that really has a problem with this. So he is never, ever the test proctor, and he is never, ever the person in the room taking notes. And he knows this, and it's fine. He's perfectly happy being the person that writes the code and the person that reviews the analysis afterwards. He's also perfectly happy if all he ever does is sit in his cubicle and write code. And that's okay, because he's really good at that. And we let him, and we pay him appropriately for his expertise. And I don't feel that it's important to push him outside of that box if it's going to bias our analysis. Once again, if the user asks you, what should this thing do? How should I do this? What is this supposed to say? Push it back on them, trying to get them to give you as much information about how to make your thing, your app, your page better. What do you think it should do? How do you think that should work? Where do you think that should go? And that way you're not telling them how you think it should work. You're getting your user to tell you what a user thinks it should, how a user thinks it should work. And hopefully this is part of your target user audience. And you're getting not only are you testing and you're seeing where you failed, but how you can better succeed. And the best test result we can get is total failure. We pull up the web page, we say, where is Drought in your neighborhood? And they go somewhere completely different. And we know that, hey, what we've built is completely not working. And we've learned it at the very first step of the process. So when we released this version of the Drought portal, Drought.gov, 2 years ago, the day after we pushed it to production, the program office spent tens of thousands of dollars and did a 3-month usability study. And we got the results 4 months after we pushed the new version. And there was an incredible amount of really great information in that usability study. And we had it 4.5 months too late. This step in the process gives us that usability information directly from users at the time when we can make the best use of it. And it does it in a very cost-effective manner. So that's the base of how it works. I want to give special thanks to the team at the National Environmental Modeling and Analysis Center. They have a gentleman on staff named Dave Mickelson, who is the usability and UX expert, and he's the one that stepped us onto this path. And I would really like to talk about this process and have an open discussion. Sorry I went through that so fast. Yeah.
Sounds like you used primarily kind of internal audience for your test subjects.
Yes and no. So we have the UNCA.
Repeat the question for the.
Okay, so the question is, do we use primarily internal audience? And So the answer is yes and no. We used a value proposition canvassing, and we identified that our two primary customers of our website are our regional drought coordinators and a environmentally interested general audience. And that's kind of it's kind of vague, but that's about the best way we can actually explain it. So the regional coordinators are definitely an internal audience, and we have a limited number of those. But our environmentally interested general audience, we have so we can use our internal, because we work for NOAA, National Centers of Environmental Information. We have in the building some of those. But we also have resources with the UNC Asheville at the NEMAC. We have a big Cocoa Ross community in Asheville. We reach out to people at the USGS. We reach out to some of the regional partners. We get the state climatologists to refer us people that we can use for testing. So we try to reach out and not just use the internal people because they know what should do. We try to reach beyond the scientists because we really don't want, our analytics are telling us that scientists aren't coming to our website. It's regular people. Government people aren't coming to our website. So we need to shift our focus, and if all we're doing is having scientists test the page and saying, yeah, that looks great, we're mismatching our audience. So a lot of times I'll just take a laptop and I'll go down to the coffee shop and say, hey, would you interested in doing a user test? I'll buy you a cup of coffee. It's $2, and I'll get the feedback.
So this is two questions. When you started doing this usability testing, was it for a site that already existed that you were trying to improve? And if not, then why wasn't usability incorporated before even you hit production?
So yes and yes. So the concept came to us when we got prepared to redesign our entire concept of our site for our next version, which will be on the Drupal 8 platform. And we went to NEMAC and say, we want to start from scratch because nobody's even thought about what it should be. Everybody's just been redesigning the site based on the last site. And they said, okay, well, we need to do some usability. At the same time, the powers that be, the stakeholders said, we have certain aspects of the current site that we want to be improved before we're going to let you retire it to O&M and focus all development efforts to the new site. So we incorporated this testing into those redesign elements of our current site, and that gave us the opportunity to fine-tune how we were going to incorporate it into our development cycle. So our homepage and what will soon be our state pages have all been developed based on this. And from the ground up, this usability testing will be completely integrated into the next version, which we're hoping to launch in the next 6 to 8 months.
How did you determine the time limit for the success criteria?
So the question is, how do we determine the time limit for the success criteria? It's very subjective. I do a lot of the Google Analytics, and we can see, okay, how long do people spend on the page based on how long we think people should need to do this type of thing. So it's more of an educated guess. So if we have a feature that we want people to use, and we want them to be able to travel through the site at such and such a rate, and this feature is halfway through, then we kind of cut the rate that we want them to travel through in half, and this is the success criteria. So it is rather subjective, and once you go through it, you start getting 2, 3, 4 users, and they need 3 minutes more to hit that point than what we've identified as a success criteria. That lets us know that either we were wrong in estimating our success criteria, or we need to redesign the process to make it easier, more fluid, or better. And so, and there's always that balance. It's a feedback loop. So what is it? Did we get the wrong success criteria, or do we need to redesign the process? Yes?
I have another question. How do you define your set of testers in the different levels of delivery? Let's say stories, features, or versions. You can include all this in a single version, I guess. How do you define what users are going to use or reuse in the same, for different set of deliveries?
So you're asking how we define which users we're going to use for each test?
Yeah, and also how often you do it. Like you do a story and test it with the real users, and then you complete a feature with these stories and then test it again with them, or versions.
To be honest with you, whenever I say, hey, this should work this way, and my technical lead says, no, it should work this way, and the program office comms director says, no, it should work this way, we come up with the version that the person that's writing the code, which is usually myself or my programming partner, decides to program, and then we test it. And if it passes, then that's what we go with. That's not how it should work. But no, anytime before we push anything to development, we try to run a test. Now some things we know. I mean, it's a news story. It goes those will go straight to production. But a new feature, we have a map. We want to add a new layer to the map, and we don't think the colors are going to work. And we want to put it in front of people before we see if the layer set's understandable and people can use it and is toggleable, and that we'll put through user testing. So anytime we have a question of will our users get this, we put through user testing, and we should probably put through more. I mean, we don't know. I mean, we're not the target audience, so we should probably put more things through user testing than we do.
So how often do you call real users for testing?
I would say probably 2 out of 3 tests we're trying to get real users. Every time we try to get real users every time.
It sounds like you're looking to incorporate user testing throughout your process. So it sounds like up to this point, you've primarily used user testing where you either have a fork in the road with how to do something that you're doing new, or you think there's a problem. Do you have any plans to, once the Blade platform is out, do any form of user testing to see if there are new problems surfacing on a periodic time frame?
Yes. So the question is, do we have, once we get our new site out on the Drupal 8 platform and things are stable, do we have any plans on continuing to do the user testing just to make sure we keep on track? Is that the question? And the answer is yes, we hope to. That being said, I've been with the program for 3 years, and we've not yet hit a period where we aren't in active development. So as soon as we get something done, there is a new feature, there is something more. We're constantly going back into active development on something. So it is my hope that we go back and continue the testing process just to make sure that we achieve where we wanted to be. In reality, I'm not sure that we're going to hit that as well as we would like.
So was your, prior to doing usability while you were developing, right? Did you have a time constraint in any ways? And then always follow-up question. So now that you do have your usability testing incorporated with your development, how does it affect those time constraints that you have or don't?
Actually, incorporating the usability testing into development has made our development process go much smoother, because before then there was a decision-making lock. So it would be, hey, it should work this way. I would say, hey, it should work this way because ABC. And then our technical lead, who is technically the portal manager, say, no, it should work this way because C, D, and E. And then we would have 5 people that had 5 different reasons, and nobody would make a decision. And so we would just be bound and locked because everybody had really good reasons for things to be a certain way, their way, and nobody would give an inch. And at this point we can say, okay, well, let's try version A and version B and put it in front of some users and see what the users think. And so we can really quickly get a user-based perspective and break that deadlock and move forward. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
I think that's a really great takeaway, that when you value consensus in your team, and this is a great way to move forward with decisions. So thank you for all this information.
Yes?
Do you use the information about like how long user on your page to determine how long it should take them to find something that you want them to find? Like you said, you determine the time you want them to find it in just kind of by what you think they should find it in, but do you use your analytics of how long you're on that page for to determine that as well?
So the question was, do we use the Google Analytics to determine our times that things should take for our testing? And the question is yes. We use Google Analytics pretty extensively to see how our users are using the site and how we want them to use the site. So yeah, a lot of the tests, we start with the Google Analytics, but analytics can only tell you so much. And so the user testing picks up where the analytics leave off. We're also going to be implementing Crazy Egg, which will give us heat map. And so we can see, in addition to the analytics, we can see where users are actually clicking. Eye tracking would help a little better, but that gets a little invasive. Well, I guess if there's no more questions, I'll be here all week as I hit the microphone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.